And rather than having consistency across the school, a lot of behavior management would rely on kind of individual relationships with the young people. So they'd all, get out their phones, and I'm like, get those away now, thank you very much. And they'd be like, ugh, sir, let's just do it. And it's like,
No
how am I,
consistency.
yeah, there's no consistency whatsoever. And how am I going to deal? So of course I'm going to have my standards. Of course you're not going to have your phone out in my lesson. Don't be ridiculous.
Hello, my name's Jenna. I'm an online primary tutor, and today I'm talking to Tatton Spiller, the founder of Simple Politics. I'm going to be talking about his time in teaching, his work at the Houses of Parliament, and then how he came up with Simple Politics. He has appeared on TV and radio and has very kindly agreed to chat to me. Keep watching. Thank you very much for joining me today, Tatton. It's lovely to have you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for chatting.
Lovely. I actually have followed Simple Politics on and off for the past few years, like I was saying to you before we started recording. And then I came across your website, was having a little nosy, and I was delighted to find out that you used to be a teacher. Sent you a quick email and never thought I'd hear back from
And the
from
rest,
you at
the
all.
rest is history.
Yeah, so let's get started then. So you originally were a teacher. You taught English, politics, and citizenship at secondary level. What initially drew you to that kind of role?
Well, originally I wanted to be a drama teacher more than anything else.
Oh, wow.
And my PGCE was in drama, English with drama, or drama, whichever. It was in English and drama. And that was partly because I didn't want to stop. I did drama and English at university, and I really enjoyed them, and I wanted to talk about them, and I want to teach poetry and movement and communication and all of these things. Um, and there was also I got to be honest, if you've got an English and drama degree, what else? What else are you gonna do? But I applied for I applied and got into the Institute of Education, and yeah, then my first job was at a school called Quinton Kynaston, QK in central London, which is I was briefly there while Talisa was a student. She's about to go in the jungle.
Oh,
Um, but also where Jihadi John, the terrorist, was there while I was there. So
wow.
it was an inner London school, and it was, well, I mean, it was tough. It was proper inner London school with the kind of all the, like, at one point I think I had 34 languages spoken in my tutor group.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, it was incredible. It was an incredible place to be, and the staff I mean, they worked so hard, and we partied quite hard as well. But I've never felt like so much of a team member as I did there. We played football as a staff team, mixed boys and girls and everyone on a staff team on a Friday, and then, would go out to the pub and all of that. And I just fell in love with the whole thing. I always enjoyed teaching, but QK. And like it was a place to be. Lots of people I was teaching with are now head teachers elsewhere. We're talking 20 years ago now, but they've all gone on to do great things. It was special.
And then how did it then progress? How many other schools did you go on to work in?
Well, so I'm bipolar, right? And one of the things I do is as soon as things are going well, I leave.
Oh,
I quit and do something else. And I felt like, I was going much more English. I dropped the drama altogether. Partly because there weren't enough drama lessons to share around.
yeah.
Except for year nines, and no one wants to teach year nine drama. Like literally no one wants that. Um, so I wanted to. I thought, oh, I'm writing a lot. I think I'd like to write some words for rather than just teaching words. I'd like to write some words. So I applied to a journalism course at the London College of Printing, which is now University of the Arts. and got in there. And so I actually left mid-year, which makes me a bad person because you shouldn't leave
Or
mid-year.
because I don't like in teaching if you leave mid-year.
They
Everywhere
don't
else you
like
can
it.
do
Yeah.
it, but in teaching they don't like it.
No, 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 no. But yeah, I left in December, and so I started this course in January. And did journalism for a bit. So my progression in teaching, I think I was promoted when I was at QK to like, I don't know. I did a little like, oh, I was deputy head of year. I mean, these kind of tiny little things that they do to kind of keep people trundling through and make them feel like they're doing progression. But then, so yeah, I did journalism, and then I was unemployed for a bit because when you start out in journalism, like I had these visions of starting out in journalism and writing hard-hitting pieces for the Observer, but instead you're kind of wasting your time at terrible. I was in a consumer magazine called Square Mile, which is a free magazine they hand out to people in the city about how to spend your money, about like because this was 2006, maybe 2007. And it was before the financial crash, and in the city they just all had so much money. um yeah, and that's what happened. So I did that, and I was like, this is not for me. This is literally the last thing I want to do. Writing pieces called how to blow your bonus. Ugh, disgusting. So I was unemployed for a bit while I was working out what I was going to do, and then this job in Parliament came up, and it was teaching young people who are visiting schools. And it was like, oh, I've got a little bit of journalism, that'll help. And I've got a lot of teaching, that'll help. And yeah, I applied, and I got the job. And yeah, that was life changing.
And what did that involve?
So it was a really exciting time when they launched the education service at Parliament in like the late 90s. They advertised internally for people who thought they might like to talk to children, right? So they did
Okay.
not get teachers, and they did not get education people. And then they were professionalizing it, and the guy came in called Tom O'Leary, and he came in to make it all like it should be, right? And I was one of the first people he brought on. And what we did was, well, write new sessions and train people and try and make it professional. And while I was there, they put a budget in, and they've now got an education center. But we didn't when I was there, which is cool because we were working out of committee rooms, and like I just got to know Parliament and how it works. Like I consider myself a genuine, not a world expert, but like I know how Parliament works because of my time there. And I was in education, so I had to know everything. I learned and saw everything that happens, all the procedure, all of that stuff. And I had different young people. So I'd have them for like 45 minutes because they'd
And did
come to
they
me.
come to you?
They come to me. They're on a visit to the House of Parliament. And they
Right.
come to visit House of Parliament, and they have a tour, and they have a session. Um, and I wrote the sessions and trained my team into how to deliver the sessions. And it was a lot of fun because
How
you
did
get
it
to
compare
be,
to teaching, like
oh, I
training
mean,
teachers and training people in Parliament?
it was totally different because it was just about being silly. It was about when young people come to a classroom, especially if it's a committee room, it's an actual room that's used by parliamentarians, and it's not set up to be child or pedagogically sound, right? So you've got to go out there. You've got to be out there because if you just go, "Hello, everybody, come
Yeah.
in and take a seat," then they're like, What is?" So we were really silly. I mean, we were really, really silly and do game shows type things, and it was brilliant. And because we had so many sessions, we could just experiment and experiment and experiment and experiment because every child that comes in is not doing it for the first time. We got we got to do so much, and because we were the ones who were completely reinventing everything the education session the service was doing. We got to do whatever we wanted. Like, that's not true. That's not true at all because, well, in terms of pedagogy and learning and making a difference, we did do whatever we wanted. But what we weren't allowed to talk about was politics because we
Oh,
were an impartial service. So we needed to teach people how Parliament works. We needed to teach people the role of an MP and all of that stuff. But we weren't allowed to touch. There was a referendum about whether we should move to the alternative vote while I was there, and we couldn't touch it because it was policy and we were an impartial service. And there was a belief while I was there, and I don't know if it's still the case now because I've obviously left a long time ago, but there was a belief that if we talked about policy at all, then you couldn't be entirely impartial.
okay.
And then you're doing it with your hands tied behind your back because what do people care about? People care about policy. People care about whether there's a price cap on the buses and how much that's going to be. People don't care about the committee stage scrutiny of a piece of legislation. So, yeah, I mean, it had its challenges. It was so fun for such a long time. But then I think the saccharine hit of time after time kind of, I got bored of it.
Oh,
Like I wanted to actually work with young people and move them on, and not change lives by maybe seeing a little bit of parliament, but really get in there and help someone change their life. I mean, that's what teaching's about, isn't it?
yeah, definitely.
Opening doors. So yeah, I quit and went back to teaching.
And how was that going back after having that kind of outside perspective?
Do you know what? I went to a school called Lillian Bayliss in South London, next to the Oval Cricket Ground, in fact, and they were really good to me there because he treated me a lot like an NQT,
Oh,
which isn't called an NQT anymore. But anyway,
nobody
um,
can see nowadays.
yeah, but I was given a lot of coaching to get into it. And this was a very academic school. All the teachers were being encouraged to do MAs. Everyone was talking about how young people learn. And it was like the most consistent. Every classroom was doing the same behavior management things, for example, every classroom. And so when I was struggling, there was so much support at the beginning. And then I learned what I was doing and got back to my outstanding observations and got back to feeling like I can really do this. I can really teach. This is something, and it was lovely.
Did you teach
Um,
politics at this point?
no, just English.
Right.
And then I went to and then my we had a child. My wife and I had a child, and then we had a second on the way, and our we had a little tiny flat in London, a little tiny one. And it just wasn't suitable, so we had to
Right.
move. And I think if I'm really honest with you, there were issues with our marriage, and we thought a big move might solve that. So we moved to the seaside. We moved to a town called Whitstable on the Kentish coast. And so Kent, unbeknownst to me, have a system where all the jobs in Kent are on a website called Kent Teach, and they don't
Okay.
use the TES at all. And so when I'm looking for jobs near where I'm moving to, there's nothing at all.
And you're stressing.
I'm like, how can there be no teachers' jobs?
Where are they
Um,
all?
so I just wrote to all the head teachers and said,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
coming to, you know, like I've done this, I've done this, outstanding observations, blah blah blah. Do you want me? And a few head
Um,
teachers got back, and it was like perfect.
no.
And one head teacher got back to me first, and I went and did an interview. Um, Again, just English at this point, and yeah, he offered me a job, which was nice. Um,
I bet they were surprised when you wrote, though. I bet they were like, have you not seen the website?
Well, they didn't have a job. So it was just like,
No,
we'll
when you
make a
haven't got a
job.
job, you
Like,
resort.
yeah, I'm sure they were surprised, but like, you do what you can.
Definitely, definitely.
And
And I
I
bet
can
they
write.
were
I
like
mean,
that.
if I can get an interview somewhere, having done one-off sessions with so many thousands of children, an interview lesson is the easiest thing in the entire world, right? I've got to write a one-off session that's going to completely blow their minds, going to be different to everything they've ever done before. Easy. I've done it
A whole
thousands of
bank.
times. This is what I do. And then obviously I have to, it was, God, it was awful. It was awful because
Why? What
I
happened?
persuaded them I was a really good teacher. And they were like, oh, okay, have all the C D borderlines. Like a year 11 and at year 10. And like all the tricky classes, let's do this.
Oh,
And it was just a different world of teaching from these academic, really focused in London schools to a secondary modern, because we have the grammar school system here.
yeah.
So we've got the secondary modern school where all the aspirations been torn out because the grammar look everyone's good trying to go to the grammar schools. So there's no A students, B students dragging people up with them. It was white working class school, which is completely unlike anything I've ever worked at before, because I've used such multiculturalism. I'm used to all kinds of things. It's an area without much employment. Like since I was in, do you know what I'm saying? Not very nice things about it, so I'm not going to say where it was. But I was in an area of Kent where there had been a lot of tourism, and then that all stopped. And there was mining, and the mining stopped. And so there's multi-generational unemployment.
Mm.
And it was just totally different.
You wouldn't
And
expect that from Kent, though, would you? If someone said to you, Kent, that's not what you would expect in terms of what the school would be like.
I mean, there's quite a few secondary moderns that are
Yeah.
really struggling because I mean, teachers. Like I had a teacher say to me that they'd rather teach in a grammar school, but they couldn't get in. And it's like, so not only have you only got the young people or people on the margins who didn't get in to grammar school. But you've also got teachers. You've also got not the best teachers doing it. And rather than having consistency across the school, a lot of behavior management would rely on kind of individual relationships with the young people. So they'd all, get out their phones. And I'm like, get those away now. Thank you very much. And they'd be like, sir, let's just do it. And it's like,
No
how am
consistency.
I how yeah, there's no consistency whatsoever. And how am I going to deal? So of course I'm going to have my standards. Of course you're not going to have your phone out in my lesson. Don't be ridiculous. But then you become this kind of ogre figure in the school, generally disliked. Um and it's I don't know what they do these days, but we had rather than coursework, they got rid of coursework while I was there, and they
Okay.
replaced it with these controlled assessments where you would basically write coursework but under exam conditions. And we were told really strictly, no support for these kids. They are in there. This exam conditions, got to get it done. And I had to pop out of my classroom at one point, and I just saw every other teacher had like essay plans written on the board to support the children and quotes and things like that. And I'm like, my kids got nothing because that's the rules of the game. And again, so it was really hard, and I had two tiny, very young kids at home, and yeah, so I tried to escape into more A-level teaching, which I'd always kind of wanted to do, and the school was quite happy for me to do because it was, it just my classroom teaching, it got better. It got better. I did get back to that outstanding standard, which made me feel a lot better about myself. And when people see the results you're getting, you get more respect from even the students can see that that I was a bit tougher than other people, but it was kind of okay mostly.
You're
But
getting
then
the
you get,
results.
yeah, exam results and things when they come through. I mean, it was still students who were difficult were trickier for me than they were for other people because I wanted to put rules in. It was a really hard time, and I was and it kind of I was falling apart quite a lot. So so the school was happy for me to move to to move to A level to try and challenge and channel some of the more able young people that we did have, because not everyone goes to grammar school. So we did have some able young people,
Mhm.
and I persuaded them to let me start politics A level. Because I was thinking a lot about politics at this point, and they said yes. And then there was like some head of sixth form English job. I mean, like not a big job, but I went for that and didn't get it. And the deputy head said, "What I want you to do is I want you to do citizenship across the whole school. So I'm going to give you 3 whole days a year, one every big term. And it's going to be a drop down day, and you're going to tell everybody what to do." Um, which I really enjoyed because it gave me all kinds of freedoms. And so I was mostly doing that and A level English and A level politics, and that was kind of my job, which is quite cushy. And I got to do a lot of the parliament things and combine them with the education things, and it was good. I was still falling apart.
What do you mean
Um,
when you say that it was just because of family and the workload,
mm,
or like the combination of
family. I mean, I was undiagnosed bipolar. At some point along the line, I did go to the doctor, and I was diagnosed, with depression and whatever, and things, So it was medically challenging. Uh, but yes,
also in a school when what I've noticed is if the leadership isn't strong, and because a lot of schools now will have the behaviour policy in place, and if the leadership is strong, the behaviour policy is strong, and then it's like a knock-on
yeah,
effect.
of course,
But then
yeah.
obviously if you're in a school where there's one class that's you're doing this and one class is doing
Hmm.
that, then it's just going to be chaotic all over the place. So you as a teacher will be like, oh, what am I walking into? Depending on obviously the day and that kind of thing. And I
And
can,
the lesson they've had before,
yeah,
yeah.
they've been, if they've been with a teacher that hasn't challenged them, maybe the lesson before or behaviour hasn't been good, and then they come to you, it'll be with the same attitude, and you've got to kind of bring them down to get
Hmm.
that done. And that is the
You've
big
got to make
ask.
learning happen. Your job is to make learning happen. And if they have come from an environment where that wasn't happening,
Yeah.
then trying to make it happen, you know, like we had half an hour. There was no break in the morning. There was half an hour for lunch and no break in the afternoon because there were too many fights when there were breaks.
Right.
It's like, well,
Smart.
sort the fighting out because they gotta have time and space. Maybe there was a break, a short break. I can't remember, but lunch was tight.
Mm,
And if you're teaching before and after lunch, like it was just, basically the lunch didn't exist. Um, but it was because lots of fights happened after that half hour, in the half hour to 45 minutes when people had stopped eating. I was
mm,
like, well, this is not how you deal with that.
mm.
But there is a new head teacher there now, and yeah, I mean, maybe things are different, but I found it very, very, very hard, because transitioning from totally different schools in London
Mm.
to this place was, yeah, and it hit me very hard indeed. So I had this idea for simple politics, and it was just literally on the back of an envelope.
Well, what sparked that? Like, were you talking to someone? Were you just thinking about it? Or
I always, since Parliament, when I wasn't allowed to talk about policy,
right.
I always had this idea that I could do better than we were doing there because they were so hamstrung. Not because I'm cleverer or have more finances or whatever, but I could do better than that. And then when I started doing these whole school days, I'm like, I can do this. Um, so I went down to part time and mostly just did the citizenship stuff. Actually, the first year I just did everyone's citizenship. when I was planning it, 2014, 15. And then 2015, 16, I officially launched in May 2015. And 2015, 16, I was still at school part-time. Um,
What did that look like in the beginning? When you say you launched, was it like Facebook, Instagram, or another way of launching?
I mean, I put the website up. It was 2015 because so the original idea of SP was to follow laws, to help people follow what bills are going through, to help teachers understand the education bill, to help nurses understand a health bill or whatever. And in 2015 there was a general election, and David Cameron won his first majority, and it was like from that mark, I would track bills they go through, and you could sign up as a lawyer if you wanted to sign up for justice bills, for example, and then I'd send emails out when your bill was in Parliament. Um, was the idea, and I mean it was a terrible idea, but it got me out. And I soon discovered that no one goes on websites. No one just Googles and goes
Yeah.
on odd websites. So that
You
didn't
put that much
work.
effort into one and it's just like, poof, no.
Yeah, I mean, no. So I needed to be doing more on social media. So to tell people the website was there. So initially I was on Twitter to tell because that's where politics happens, on Twitter. And I didn't understand that I don't people who know politics don't need me because they can read the Times or whatever. So Twitter grew slowly, but then I launched on Facebook, and Facebook was where things started ticking along really nicely because people on Facebook quite like easy explanations. I mean, it was slow work because I wasn't very good at easy explanations at that point. You know, like I've learned so much over the last 10 years. And then so yeah, I dropped out of school at that point of that school. But to make in order to, finance, have some money coming in, I did a lot of Key Stage 2 work in local schools.
Okay.
Um, and the reason for that is that Key Stage 2 is much easier to get into. You can write to a head teacher, and if you get past the receptionist, then the head teacher reads it and can say yes or no. If you're writing to a secondary school, there's a whole team of people, and you don't know who to write to, and you don't know who might say yes. You know, there might be a deputy head somewhere who were desperate for what I was doing, but how am I going to find them? Like, it's a mess. So I used to write to lots of primary schools and go into lots of primary schools, and I love Key Stage 2. I can
You
just be
just at that
so.
like cusp of independence and chatty stage. Or the chatty when
Mm,
they're younger, but it's definitely as soon as they hit
uh,
university.
I can just make them laugh again and again and again and again, and they just love it. Yeah, so big fan of that. But that was until kind of, oh no, because that was Brexit time. So I created a Brexit assembly that I took around 20, 30 schools. And then SP started kicking off after that because no one knew what was going on with Brexit, and my understanding of Parliament really helped. And then there was 2017 general election, which was between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn, which you can imagine how engaged people were with that. Right. And then there was 2019 general election. And again, I mean, that's Boris Johnson, get Brexit done, all of this. And SP was growing really nicely. We're on Instagram by this point. Um, and then COVID hit, and we had got to a point where we were big enough to be really useful. So all the work we'd done before had got us. I mean, in terms of follower numbers, I think we were about 110,000 on Instagram. But it was enough to get enough shares when we were doing useful things and telling people what was going on for us to do some good work. So I will forever be proud of the work, and it was an honor and a privilege to be able to help so many people
Mm.
as we did, and we grew. You know, we added 700,000 followers or something in those couple of years, and loads on Facebook as well. Like, you know, it was Because we could help, because because the government was so bloody useless at telling people what was going on. So people would come to us and use
You're
us.
feeling that kind of need then, weren't you?
Yeah.
All this stuff
Ex
going on and you're simplifying it so that they can understand what is happening.
and putting it in terms that weren't as scary, because we never reported death numbers, for example, because we didn't think that was particularly relevant. We would talk about R and different areas to help people understand if their area was doing not so well, but we just really deliberately stayed away from fear mongering and just told people how it was. And
Because at the time, a lot of it was fear mongering, and a lot of people were very, very scared. So I think
mm,
have a refreshing platform that's just like this is this and this is that, and they can kind of push away everything else, which a lot of people's mental health, 2020 was obviously, as you know, very, very poor, and people are still recovering from that
oh,
now,
of course.
the
You
impact
see,
of it.
I used to watch the 5 o'clock briefing every day and then go and sit on the beach, which was just outside my house.
Yeah.
Illegally at first because you weren't allowed to sit down outside. But I would take a can of beer and sit and cry and listen to music.
I think a
And it
lot of
was,
people, that 5 o'clock one was just so, oh,
yeah. And but and we used to, we reported on it every day. Yeah, so COVID happened and we did what we did then. And since then we've just kind of carried on doing what we do. Um
or
and
you
we're
at the beginning.
what's that?
Or you at the beginning, you did it all yourself at the very beginning.
Yeah, all me at the beginning, yeah. And then someone called Hattie came along and she helped me for a couple of years. And then she left at the 2017 general election, 2019 general election, I can't remember, 2019, I think. And then Diane started 2019. Um, and then Charlotte came on board for the US elections 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Quite a famous magazine approached me and said, "Will you do our social media for the US elections?" And I thought, I don't really want to do your social media.
Do
And
my own.
Diane was like, "We should do our own." So yeah, okay. But we are so because we're so small, we can change, we can do whatever we want. Like we can launch something, we can give it a go, see if people like it. We did SP Animals for a bit when COVID, when people were low, where we just shared pictures of people's pets. And that was just a Friday afternoon chat, and then by Saturday morning it was up and running.
It's a good team. I've listened to your podcast a few times and I like the relationship you've built with each other. You're very respectful of one another and you kind of share your expertise and each one's expertise are respected within your group on the podcast, which I really like. And it's not all one-sided. You've got different sides so that just some things I've kind of watched and listened to, especially now with the Trump thing going on, it's very one-sided on some platforms and very intense, whereas you just, like you say, just give the facts, which I really appreciate. It's really lovely as a listener
Oh,
to
good.
listen to. It's been
Yeah,
really,
which I try and outline different sides, and often I have to take sides that I don't like at all because no one else is going to take them. So I'd have to come in and do Trump's perspective, for example,
yeah.
because Charlotte would rather not. But that's how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. And who would be your main target audience for Simple Politics currently?
As an English teacher, we had to be really clear that there has to be a target audience. And the students would always go, "No, it's everybody. I want this to be for everybody." And we would say, "No, you have to do a target audience." But now I don't have a target audience. I just, no, it is the whole business ethos, if I can talk about it as a business, which is not, but the whole strategy for SP is always to sit in our corner and do good, useful things. And if we do that, people will come to us. And that's worked so well in the past. Like I never dreamt I've written 2 books. I've had 2 books published. Like I never dreamt that would be a thing that I would be a published author twice, twice.
You enjoy that
And
process of being an author?
oh, what? Getting sit and write what I want? Yeah, brilliant. And then like I go on TV sometimes, and I'm on the radio, and like it just these things come to us, and we just put out good things, what we think is are good things and things we are proud of, and people come to us. So I'm not targeting people. I mean, our Instagram is mostly 18 to 34-year-old women, like
Okay,
mostly.
okay.
And it's a different older demographic on Facebook.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going on Twitter? I don't really care about Twitter. And we just launched on TikTok very recently, so we've got a tiny weeny audience, but I think they're younger than our Instagram
Mm,
because that's just who's on the platform. Um, so no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm targeting people.
no. It's interesting that change because when you're in teaching, everything's got to be very much down the line. And then when you step away from teaching, there's so much opportunity, like you said about the TV, radio, podcast, whatever it may be.
Mm,
And it's really exciting because for me personally, when I was in teaching, I got to the point where I was like, I feel a little bit trapped.
yeah,
And then when you step away and then so many different things are happening and you don't know about this, like you have no idea until you make that move and see. And it's just, how is it been on TV and radio? Do you find it overwhelming or do you like, is it just part of the job? You find it fascinating?
just sit and chat.
Just sitting and chatting.
Yeah, that's all it is. Like, I don't do clever things on the radio. Like, I just people ask me questions and I tell them what I think. Like, that's all. That's all. Like this, like we're doing now. That's all I do.
Yeah.
But I think people enjoy. I think where I've had broadcast media success, it's just because I
Say it how it is.
just yeah. There's no pretense. I never pretend. If you pretend stuff, you got to remember things.
Yeah.
I I can't be doing that. I cannot be doing that. So I'm very open about my mental health. I'm very open about, politics and what's going on and chatting through things. I don't like to talk about my own opinions particularly because my opinions don't matter. Nothing's about me. It's about what other people feel.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, openness and honesty and peace and love and stuff. That's what it's about. And so often in politics and political conversation and political, especially commentary. I don't do commentary particularly, but there's so much trying to show how clever you are rather than demonstrating helping other people.
I think with politics, it can get a bit like fluffy, and that can be the thing that makes people switch off. Whereas with
Yeah.
obviously with simple politics, like you say, you just straight to the point, and people will appreciate that. Like they know, and the more information you know, the more in control you feel. The less you know, the more panicked. Or I've certainly felt like that in the past. If you don't know, then you
Yeah, I mean
go
that
straight to
certainly
that
helps me.
worry.
That certainly helps me, that knowledge that I know this stuff. Ask me anything because I'll be able to give you a response to it, rather than this kind of panic as to what's going to happen next.
Mm. So, in terms of highs and lows, so for simple politics, what do you think has been your biggest high so far? Something that you've achieved with doing this?
Don't know.
Not sure.
I
What's
mean,
been a
it's all.
challenge with running that you didn't expect?
I mean, I don't know. Like it's just every day. Every day is a challenge. Just kind
Yes,
of what we're going to
something
do
new.
next. You're only as good as the last few posts. Like I am completely at the whim of Meta. Like if they choose to change the algorithm tomorrow and no one sees my posts, then the donations dry up and no one buys anything because no one sees we're there. Everyone forgets about us. Like that's not because they're terrible people. It's just because someone in San Francisco or wherever has decided to change everything. And we're about to launch on YouTube and do more video. I've never done wanted to do video because I don't like it, but it's time. We need to do it. And one of the reasons is because it's Google rather than Meta. So it gives us another, it's eggs in fewer baskets, and it spreads us out a bit more, and everything can go round and round and round, reels and TikToks and leading to longer form videos on YouTube and all that kind of thing. So that's going to be quite challenging. Um, I'm not very good at celebrating things we've done because I just immediately write them off. They're not good enough. We don't have 1 million followers on Instagram. So what we're celebrating for? Um, that's all my mental health stuff.
Mm. But social media is challenging. I find it from a small business perspective in terms of tutoring. Like you say, there's so much, like so many of my friends and even stuff that's not related to me. It's such good content when you come across it. And then
Mm.
because the algorithm isn't in its favour, hardly anyone sees it. And you are constantly, and you do have to be careful on social media, I find, because it can get you a little bit. And like you've just got to kind of rise above it and just keep doing, keep going every day. That's the one piece of advice I found from other people. Keep being consistent, keep doing what you
Hmm.
are doing, because
Hmm.
at the end, you're doing it for you and for your purposes. And obviously it is working because obviously, even though you're not at 1 million on Instagram, you've got so many people that appreciate your work and what you are doing. It's just incredible. Like I'm only one person, but you've got lots and lots of people that are really, for everything that you've mentioned,
Oh, I mean, we're
help those
very, very
people
lucky.
through that time.
We're
So,
very, very lucky. We've got a
yeah,
wonderful community. Wonderful.
yeah. And again, your team seems to work really, really well together, and all those ideas and things that you come up with are helping, even if it's from the pictures of the animals to politics. People like that light relief because things are so intense in the world, obviously. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what do you think has been the most valuable lesson coming from teaching and politics and creating simple politics that you've kind of taken to move maybe into your own personal life with your kids
Just
and family?
just give it a go.
Yeah.
If some things won't work in the classroom, most things I did didn't work in the classroom. Just
It was
try
your testing
try stuff
ground.
out. Like, yeah, as an iterative approach. Give it a go. See what works. See, and if that works, do some more of it. If it doesn't work, bin it off. Don't be too attached to it. I've had loads of projects through SP that haven't come off at all, but then some that have, and I didn't. When just try it. Just try it out. If you have an idea, try it out. See what happens. There's a concept in business, and again, this isn't, I'm not business, but called minimum viable product, which is when you're coming to market, when you're bringing a product to market, don't make it perfect. Get it out as soon as you can. As soon as you've got a minimum viable product, give it a go. And as soon as you've got a minimum viable idea in teaching, in life, in whatever, just try it. Try it, try it, try it.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And obviously, I'll leave all your details down below for everyone that wants to check you out. But again, thank you for your time today and thank you for chatting to me. I've loved it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
If you liked today's video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to.